Hey everybody, this is Chris aka Hellgator, and I'm here to talk about an Intel processor that used to cost about $1,600 and now you can get it for under $70. Alright, so a lot of processors nowadays, they're not getting as many IPC improvements as they used to. Like for example, going from Skylake to KB Lake, all the review sites and everything that you see online, it all points to minimal to none on IPC improvements. So clock for clock, they're about the same. So you can keep going back and they're still pretty good shape. You can have a good i7 from several years back and still be set right now. Maybe overclock it a little bit if you need to, but for the most part, it isn't that big a deal. I know people who have their Sandy Bridge i7s that are still rocking that, and they're doing great. Sandy Bridge i5 still doing great. I've got an Ivy Bridge in my 3770K, or Ivy Bridge processor is what's in my system actually. I have that overclocked to 4.3 gigahertz, but I just did it because I put it on an AIO and I wanted to see what it can do, but it didn't really need it. I wasn't being negatively affected on it by any way, so. There was a socket a while back around when Intel first started getting their i7s going, and that socket 1366. It brought triple channel memory. It was a great setup, but if you look on eBay right now, they're pretty expensive to get a enthusiast X58 board that'll work with that. So what some people do now, and what I did for my little brother's build, which you'll see linked at the bottom of this video, it's an HP Z400 motherboard build. Well, a lot of that stuff is getting dumped onto eBay and it's really affordable. You can get a socket 1366 motherboard with cooler, with a processor, with all that stuff, and it ends up only costing you maybe about $100 for that. It takes a little finagling to get some of the stuff to work on it, but for the most part, if you're good with the computers and you're good with wiring diagrams and things like that, you can get it, and you can get it going for cheap. So this processor that I had bought used to cost $1,600 back in the day. You can find it on eBay right now for around $70. It's the fastest clocked Xeon variant that you can find for socket 1366. There is no i7 equivalent, and that processor is the Xeon X5687. It's a hyper-threading quad-core, just like an i7, but there are no i7s for socket 1366 that go as fast as that one. It's clocked 3.6 gigahertz base with a 3.9 gigahertz turbo, and it's got a 12 megabyte L3 cache. It's basically it's a cut-down 6-core processor. It's not like a specific design quad-core i7. There's no equivalent to it, like I mentioned. Like other Xeons. Like the one that I originally got with that Z400 motherboard was a Xeon W3550, which its equivalent was an i7 950. And so you keep going up and you get to like an i7 980X or something like that, and its rough equivalent is about like a Xeon W3680 or something like that. So you can get a more powerful processor for the socket, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing rendering, video editing, stuff like that, you're going to want to go with the 6 cores that are hyper-threading that are available for that socket, but they don't go as fast as the X5687 hyper-threading quad-core. The advantage to that is obviously if gaming can't take advantage of those extra cores right now, not really. So you want clock speed over cores in that scenario, and in this case you get the 3.6 gigahertz with a 3.9 gigahertz turbo, and that's going to be as fast as you can possibly get. I've thrown Battlefield 1 at it, Gears of War 4, Unreal Tournament, the new one that's available free on UnrealTournament.com, with a GeForce 770 4GB, and it runs everything fantastically. It's actually, I'm really surprised at how well it's running everything. The advantage as well to this one versus the other i7s for that socket that aren't at the top is those lower Xeons and those lower i7s for socket 1366 only support up to DDR3 1066 memory. Well, this one supports DDR3 1333. You line that up in dual channel, you get 3-4 gigs chips in there, and you got 12 gigabytes. It's really all you need, and it runs great. There really isn't a whole lot of benefits to faster memory in a lower end system like that. When you're starting to crank up the resolutions and push your system harder, then it might matter a little more, but at 1080p or less, it's not that big a deal, and it shows with this system. So We actually have this running on a 1440 by 900 resolution monitor, and it's 75 hertz. We can run everything basically VSync locked on high. Gears of War 4 automatically went to a mix between high and ultra. Battlefield 1 runs on high on everything. It's very surprising, and as you can see, it can record through shadow play very well. There isn't any lag. The system runs well. Honestly, right now that system needs an SSD to really take full advantage of everything that's in it. But it's great so far. I put it through a lot of benchmarks as well, and the X5687 measures up favorably. It beats an AMD FX 8350, and it sort of keeps up. It's in the ballpark with like the i5 Haswells, which is pretty surprising, honestly, considering how much newer they are versus this one. This one came out in, I think, 2012. It's the Westmere-EP platform, and it does keep up pretty well, as you can see on the numbers. It hangs in there. Pretty shocking, actually. But I guess, I was expecting this thing to run like a beast, and especially considering that the Z400 workstation motherboard and the Xeon and the server grade, the quality of it, the longevity of it, it's probably going to go for a pretty long time as well. Now, if you pair it with a pretty good motherboard, you can probably overclock this thing even better. A little bit of research on the overclocking for this processor is you can do base clock overclocking. It's not really an unlock multiplier on this one, so you have to go the other way, but back in those days you can do base clock overclocking, and it wasn't as forbidden as it is nowadays. So I've seen some people get all the way up to 200 megahertz on the base clock with different versions of processors on this socket, and that means you can get well into the 4 gigahertz on this one. And if it's already good up to 3.9 gigahertz, it's going to be great that high up. And I really wish I could see a little more on that, but you're kind of locked out with getting like an HP or a Dell 1366 motherboard. And that's just how it is. If you're going to stick with budget and you're going to just have something to play on that can just do well, it is what it is. But if you already have one of those X58 motherboards and you find this processor, definitely jump on it. You're not going to get any better than this. Now, this computer turned out great, and this is probably like my third video on the building of this computer, and it's taken several forms. Originally with the Corsair Carbide 400R case, and then eventually into a Deepcool Ducase V2 case. The wiring at first wasn't the greatest in the Corsair, but then we started from scratch with the Deepcool, and everything turned out great. We got a fan controller on it. We were able to run everything on it, and it went really well with the install and with getting all the games running on it and everything. It's just solid, and it's very surprising is what it is, and for the money you just can't beat it. $100 shipped basically for the motherboard, a processor. This one came with 6 gigs of RAM when I originally got it, but some of them come with 12 gigs. You won't really find them on eBay for with any faster processor than maybe the Xeon 3550. If you do, great, and if you don't, well, you know what, you're looking for a faster processor anyways, so look at that X5687 because it's a beast. $1,600, alright? That's what it cost. $1,600 when it originally came out. $70 now. Right around. You can actually find it for a little less than 70, maybe a little more than 70, but right around $70. It's just, for the money, you can't beat it. I mean, especially if you have an X58 setup, go for it. Check it out. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. You got any comments, you got any questions, let me know, and I'll respond to it as soon as I can. You guys, peace out. Yeah, don't forget to check out our other videos, guys. We got plenty of other stuff, plenty of gaming, all sorts of things. And also don't forget to check out the owner of this system that I'm talking about. He's doing his own little thing with editing. He's getting into it now that he has a pretty good system. I got him set up with Windows Movie Maker to do some basic straight edits. We'll graduate him into some other stuff. TZ Gaming, he goes by Zalman909. That is his gaming handle with the Coalition Gaming crew. But check out TZ Gaming, links in the description. See you guys.